Quad Con. How are you doing?
Yeah!
Excellent, excellent. So, we've got a panel here, then after that, stick around for a PS5 raffle. So, for the panel, my name is Dr. Eric Wesselman. I'm a psychology professor and full-time nerd. I love coming to cons and having cool conversations with people about fandom. And I assume you do too. So our special guest today is Mr. Brian Colin, game designer, artist, animator, and development group leader with over 80 video game titles to his credit, such as Rampage, Xenophobe, Arch Rivals, Pigskin, and General Chaos. Also an inductee in the International Video Game Hall of Fame. He's got a history presentation for us, and then he'll take some questions. So please, Peoria, help me give a round of applause, a warm welcome to Mr. Brian Colin.
Thank you so much. It was not well deserved, but it was louder than I deserved, so that's the way we got to go with that. Yeah, my name's Brian Colin. I started in this industry in 1982, and I wasn't going into it. I went to school for film. I made films, and then I made some animated films, and in college, but because I could draw, in college I set myself up as an advertiser. So I did some animated commercials, I did some daily ads for newspapers, and eventually though I saw an ad for Midway, and I thought, what would they need an animator for? And, oh shoot, I started on the wrong one. Okay, we'll just skip this stuff. And I did not want the job. I was a filmmaker, I was a cartoonist, and I thought that Valley Midway wanted a pinball backglass designer or artist. And they said, no, we want to do video games. We want you to do art for video games. And I thought, Pac-Man? Really? People do that? You would actually pay me? And they said yes, and we'll see. And I was at a wedding, and I got the call that I got the job. And they wanted to pay me real money, as opposed to the free beer and pretzels I was doing before that. And I kind of choked up in front of my friends. I said, childhood's over. I got a real job. Boy, was I wrong. Childhood has never been over, and it's never been anything like a real job. Because the first job I got was Disciptron, and it was the programmer on that was a super perfectionist, and he knew just what he wanted, and it was the perfect game for me because doing animated films, it's weeks of drawing, nights of filming one frame at a time, sending off back in the days when it was filmed, sending it off to be developed, getting it back, and then, oh, I gotta make a mistake. For Disciptron, I'm doing stuff in the morning and seeing it in the game in the afternoon. I fell into the best possible place I could be. I could be creative, I could tweak it the next day. It was wonderful. And at that time, I was working as an animator on a lot of different games, and one of them was a game called Mothership that was bombing out on test. So I drew a little cartoon alien and said, what if we made it funny looking, cute, instead of the same old Galaga looking thing? They said, sure, do it. I'd only been there a couple of months, and they're letting me call. I reskinned the game, it went out on test, made a bunch of money. Midway loved it. They decided they were going to put him in other games, so if you've ever seen a game called Wacko in the arcades, Wacko did that. Now, not every game that and this is how Wild West it was back then. We were in a place that was not in the main factory. They left us alone. So it was all of us. I said, where do the new ideas come from? The gal that I was working with showed me, and I said, why aren't we doing this one? Well, I'll just do a little, well, because it'll look ugly, it's ants. I said, let me do a cartoon ant, and then we'll see if they like it. Can we do that? Who's gonna stop us? So the first few years that I worked at Valley Midway, that was the way it worked. I'm also working on other games at the same time. Ant Raid did not go. Ant Raid didn't make it. So you learn. This is what you need to do. This isn't. Spy Hunter is another game I'm working on while I was working on Discs of Tron, kind of technically my second game. Spy Hunter, they came in one day and said, okay, we're getting more management now. We have to protect our intellectual property. We're handing out notebooks to everyone. And every time you say something out loud or have an idea, I want it co-signed by every other person on the floor. So we took the books, we laughed, and then we came up with about the worst 200 names for Spy Hunter we could, co-signed them, and then we all threw the books away. So back in those days, it was the Wild West. It was, in fact, one of the games that we came names was Battle Scars with the CAR at the end. So we did concept art. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we put together for, if you remember Spy Hunter, you remember there was a limo with a guy with a shotgun and you had the cool thing and everything. Fortunately, marketing came up with a much better game. But in those days, we were not designers. We may have designed the game, but they did not. You're an animator, you're a programmer, you're a sound engineer. So we had to hide our names in the cabinet art. So up there, if you see the specs pointing to the different parts of the car, I think mine says BC Missiles for Brian Colin. The engine is a Leone type engine because his name was Tom Leone. And that was the way it was back then. They left us alone. We were a bunch of kids going, are we really getting paid to do this? It was a wonderful peer-to-peer, everybody helped everybody else out. Next game I did was a game called Demolition Derby with a couple of people. I did mainly cute girls in the background between screens, other people, and I taught some of the previous artists how to do, they didn't know what perspective was. So they weren't classically trained. But that game did really well, so we wanted to do another one with the same guy. We wanted to do Sarge is what we wanted to do a tank game, so we came up with Sarge. And Sarge, my contribution was, I want to do a game back like that Ant Raid that didn't do well, where you're controlling multiple characters. So from Sarge, you could run from your tank to your helicopter, fight against the other player, or both of you could fight against the computer. Because I like the idea of no wrong way to play it. So, well, and there's one of those girls that I became famous for at the time. Sarge was great, and I mean, there's kids playing it. Actually, that low-cut version was a dip switch setting that the operator could turn on or off. So if you got high enough. Now, I did not do the cabinet art though yet. I did not do the flyers yet. I will say, you learn things. Jeff and I, the programmer on that, decided that we were going to put in something just for us. So there was a dip switch setting on just our two games where if you got to Lieutenant Colonel, she was topless. They went into production the first week that way, and they got discovered, and we had to quickly change the EEPROMs so you don't make changes last minute and you don't think you're doing it just for yourself. All right, after Sarge, by then I was a designer. They weren't calling me one, no one's a designer. But I did a game called Swackery. Nolan Bushnell was touring the offices, father of video games, and management walked by the office and said, and this is our new game, Swackery, and this is the designer, Brian Colin. I went out and changed my business cards the very next day. Swackery I did with some of the guys from Dungeons & Dragons, Tracy Hickman, who wrote a ton of great novels, you may know him, and it was a exploration. You found things, you could cast spells, it repelled dragons, all that kind of stuff. Swackery was a lot of fun. Oh, and not every game was a hit. Sometimes, Petunia Louie, you were a boomerang throwing cave woman on top of a giant red pterodactyl who would run across the ground eating watermelons. Then you would leap into the air and spit watermelon seeds at giant invisible killer bees. Who knows why that one didn't take off? No pun intended. But back then they were very, for the most part, leaving us alone, but then they moved us into the factory. And around that time, management had been making money off of stuff we were doing. So management got thicker, and I wanted to do background animation. No, you can't do it. No, you can't do it. No, you can't do it. Spend money. No, we're not spending the money. You are, Brian, finally, give it up. You can move a rectangle in the background. And you can only move it like that. What are you going to do with a moving rectangle? So I turned to the animator Sharon next to me, and he went, a building falling into itself, that's a moving rectangle. We cover up the bottom with some foreground smoke, and what knocks down buildings? Big creatures, which I had done in Zachary and wanted to do more of. I will point this out, though, a little aside, that handsome guy who's George in the human form, that was me. That's my wife, who turned into Lizzie, and programmer Jeff Nauman turned into Ralph. Ralph, people wonder why a wolf. Well, that was the original design team. Mikey Bartlow dressed as a soldier. Sharon Perry is the woman in red. Jeff Nauman's got the hat on. Jim Belt was the businessman. And that idiot on the, I don't know who that other idiot is. But anyway, this was the team. This was how small they were. You could do something in 9 months. And we knew we had next year's #1 game. I put it at the top of the game design document. The psychology of Rampage, or why this is next year's #1 game. So we went right to my boss and we said, we got it. And he said, no. So I went over his head to his boss. Oh, I love it. It's great. It's funny. So we can do it? No. You're eating people. You're the bad guy. You're not the bad guy. You're the victim. No. Went to the top 3 guys in the company. No, no, no. Jeff and I started on it anyway to prove that I could do the program stuff that I wanted to do. And just by accident, the top 3 guys got fired. And the new guy coming in, his name was Maury Furch, and he came from retail's Montgomery Wards. And he sent a memo around and said, don't worry, everybody's job is safe, top-level management, you guys ain't got to worry about it. And, you know, I've got an open-door policy. You can guess who was waiting outside his door on his very first day. I pitched it to him. He said yes, and it went on to break every earnings record of the day. It was a huge success, again, but I'm still not doing the flyer art. But here's what I did do. They let me do the cabinet art for the first time. So now, from that game on, I always did the cabinet art, the control panel, all that stuff for all my games. Okay, so Rampage was a milestone for me, and we had put in, starting with Peoria, as many of you know, 125 cities in the U.S. that you could destroy. There were 768 levels, and I said to the marketing department, this is a perfect opportunity to get press around the country, send out press releases to all these cities. What did marketing say? No. So I typed up and printed, customized to every newspaper in the 125 cities and generated hundreds of articles. And the very first television coverage of a video game was in what town? Peoria! At the Aladdin's Castle Arcade here, they did a TV spot that I was in. That was great. So it ported, it did very well. A lot of you all know Rampage. Rampage, when the movie came, I heard about the movie, I started doing some custom art. Around that same time was Laserdisc. You remember Dragon's Lair, and I didn't like what they were doing with that. It's like, it's just moving the joystick quickly when you're cued. This is a chance to do like an interactive film. Because of my film background, the one head of engineering said, I'll give you a small budget, which was enough to rent the stuff. I had no money for actors, but I put an ad in the paper that said vampires wanted, no experience necessary. Got a ton of really crazy people. And we were able to afford a 13-story abandoned mental institution in downtown Chicago that had electricity but no heat in the coldest February on record. That picture right there, that's Sharon Perry, the other animator I mentioned earlier. When we were shooting that shot of her as a vampire, one of the guys I had working with me, cameraman, said, "Cut." And I said, "What do you mean cut? I'm the director here. Then what do you mean cut?" "Brian, it's snowing." "Theo, we're inside." "Brian, it's snowing." 18-foot ceilings. When we turned the lights on, the heat from the lights melted our frozen breath on the ceiling, and it literally was snowing in the middle of the shot. It was so cold it turned back to snow, and that has a whole nother story. By the time we finished filming it and editing it, Bally Midway had released NFL football, but some genius at the top had decided to use a video disc player instead of a laser disc player, which meant a video disc player has a needle. So the first time this NFL football game got bumped, it turned into a $4,000 doorstop. So they got out of the disc. Look at that handsome dude, I tell you. It's amazing what your mother's wig, when cut properly, will do to your face. That's me. And I play a corpse. So that's all fun. We'll come back to Deathstalker in a minute, though. But it did not get produced. They got out of the Laserdisc. Xenophobe, they wanted another 3-player game. I had just seen Aliens, obviously. For any of you that knows Xenophobe, knows where the background. And in this one, this game could not scroll. But if you know the game Xenophobe, it was a 3-player game in which each player could scroll in their own directions and go through the entire ship and try to kill off all the aliens before the self-destruct happens. And there was stuff all over the game because I liked the kind of find something, use it somewhere else, so you could turn off the self-destruct for a while, or you could plant these seeds and they'd grow into food. And it did so well out on its first test, and it wasn't done yet, that management said, "We're releasing it." Cool, that's great. "No, we're releasing it in 2 weeks." It's like, no, it's not done yet. That's okay, don't worry about it. So another lesson learned, don't do too well too soon, because the game went out, even broke Rampage records, but then unlike Rampage, which lasted for years, Xenophobe went out and its earnings did a typical arcade game of that time, which is falling off after 3 months. The Xenophobe was, again, a 3-player game with a lot of characters in it, an evolution of an alien race, which I found cool. And the other thing, and then again, I'm still doing the cabinet art. I'm having fun with it. It did a lot of ports. Okay, I'm going to talk about one of the best things about the arcade games, arcade days, was at the end of every 9-month period, you had 2 months of testing. Testing is the best. I mean, do any other games for another 30 years. You get focus group reports. You get, recommendations. Everything's on paper. In these days, you got to go out, put the game out there on test. No one's seen it. And I get to stand in the back of a dark room watching little kids. There's got to be a better way to say that. I got to watch players and see what made them laugh, see what made them dig for that next quarter as fast as they could, or not, and learn from that. So testing in those days was the best. I mean, there's so much about the arcade days that made it more fun than almost anything. We did a game they asked for a game that we could do in 2 months for a London show. It bombed. But it turned into a game called Blasted, which was released and did really well. Blasted was 2 guys on opposite sides of the street shooting at each other against robots, and most of it was about hitting things in the background and seeing what happens to them. Okay. Oh, and my wife and I posing for the cabinet art on that one. Okay. Max RPM was a game in which another programmer I worked with wanted to use a clutch on a driving game. It did okay. It didn't do as well as he was hoping for. And at this time they wanted to do kits for Pac-Man, because Pac-Man was the thing they had sold the most of years ago. So games like Shoot the Bull or Jump Shot and some of these others, they were fun games, but Pac-Man earned more. So not a lot of people bought these kits. Okay. Right around this time, we started on a game called Arch Rivals, a basketball game where you played with both. You controlled 2 players, so you could do real basketball strategies. And 3/4 of the way through it, we were bought by our biggest competitor, Williams Electronics, the bad guys on the other side of town. And as this picture shows, here's us all waving goodbye to Bally Midway. And hopefully the smaller children can't see what we're waving. But myself and programmer Jeff Nauman were the only 2 video game designers they kept. And so they let us finish Arch Rivals. And to my delight, I heard a rumor back then, but I've since found out it was true, the sales from Arch Rivals paid for the multi-million-dollar buyout. So if Bally had only hung on for 2 more months, they wouldn't have had to sell. That's a personal point of pride. Arch Rivals did extremely well, obviously, and that's my favorite of all. I never have anything to do with ports, but I do love looking at the art, because the people that do home console games have great, artists. I love that one. That was a Mad Magazine artist that did that one. That's my favorite of all my ports. The sequel to Arch Rivals was Pigskin. Pigskin was the same thing, controlling multiple characters, except we wanted to do a football game. They said no. William said no, already got one in the works. So we said, okay, we'll do rugby. No timeouts, no first downs, no rules. 6 Huns against 6 Vikings with torches and axes, and you could set fire to people, and it did really well on test. And then, 2 weeks before production, I had the brilliant idea that if they prepaid for an entire game, we'd give them 50 cents off. So Jeff put it in, it went out there, it's selling, and then I'm getting reports from marketing saying, it's got some erratic problem that'll make this much, this much, this much, and then nothing. And then this much and this, and on a daily basis. That's not possible. Till they found out it had a bug, that if you were prepaying and someone else bought in, it would play for free for the rest of the day. So remember I said that we learn lessons from mistakes we made. Obviously I didn't learn it that well that time. It went to the home games too. That is pretty much the arcade side. I'm going to stop for a moment and take a couple of questions. You want to ask some questions for me?
This is sort of a just general question. You've been around for a while. You've interacted with a lot of fans. You were there at the testing days. What are some of the reasons you think people love video games? Why has this been such a lucrative and long-running enterprise?
I think 2 reasons. First of all, it allows people to have fun and engage by themselves. And those were the type of games I think were the best, earliest games is I can do this by myself. The other thing was because the arcade was a thing that was a social place, even though you were playing by yourself, someone else is checking out what you're doing, someone else is saying, how did you do that? There was a community that people that embraced. And then with my games, I tried to always put 2 people on a game. Most of my best games were multiplayers, and I tried to make it so there was no wrong way to play it. You want to beat this guy up? Beat him up, fight it out. You guys want to cooperate? Cooperate. There should be no wrong way, and I think that is the longevity factor that I was mentioning, that if there's no wrong way to play it, people, strangers, can make a bond. You might push a little, oh, that was an accident, sorry. Did he buy it, or did he turn around and smack you back? That type of peer-to-peer engagement is what I think brought arcade games to a next level, and of course with home games, you could do that even more. Which brings me to my first home game as the president and CEO of Game Refuge. For about a year, EA was asking me to come work for them, and I said, no, I can't live in California, it costs too much, and there was no such thing as remote back then. Finally, they said, what if we gave you enough money to start your own company? I could do that. So Jeff and I formed Game Refuge. We went out there, we left on good terms, the new Valley Midway Williams, but we left on good terms, and we went out there and pitched a game, a war game, because real-time strategy is a thing that I love, for them in real time, not turn-based, and pins and needles, because we don't have anybody back in Chicago. We're out in San Francisco, and one of their execs said, this would be great, we like it, but can you make it street games? And I said, no, we cannot make it street games. I want this removed from modern day. My kids are going to play this. I want this silly war game of no specific time, and that was General Chaos, and it was EA's #1 original title when it came out. And original non-licensed. The Batman games were better, the Superman games, but it did so well. They worked out with the Genesis people to make the 4-player game specifically for General Chaos. So our first game as a new company was a big hit, and I've been very lucky. As an independent, we had a reputation, so I did not have to be a good businessman. I think I'm better now. I understand contracts, and as I explained, and then our next game was going to be General Chaos 2, Major Snafu, and a game called Plunder, and then EA decided they were getting into the arcade business just as everybody else was getting out. We tried, and our game, we did a game for them called RC Squared that was supposed to be their first game, but a month earlier than our game came out, they released Madden Football for the arcade. Only their biggest property sold on every system. We tried to talk them out of it. They closed before we got our first game done. But at the Galloping Ghost in Chicagoland, you can play the only existing copy of RC Squared, because I donated it to them. Around that time, the guys at Midway, we were doing other stuff for them, and they said, we need something. We've got our Mortal Kombat. We got our 14-year-old male. I need something that appeals to men, women, boys, girls, every age. We said, let's redo Rampage. So probably most of you know Rampage World Tour more than anything else. This is concept art. The guy who did the beautiful colored pencil work on here, Aaron Hartline, is now a former employee of mine. And these former employees, he's like animation director at Pixar. So they do okay after they leave Game Refuge. And most of them love their Game Refuge experience because it was never more than 5-6 guys on a game, and we all poured our hearts into it. That was one of the bigger games. That was Rampage World Tour. Those were just the artists, and we had about the same number of programmers. Rampage World Tour did fantastic, and again, somebody was here telling me they were at the first Wizard World show I was ever at. That's a picture from that show. People just coming up, and that's when I realized people hadn't forgotten. Because I've done about 70 some more games than these early 10 years, and they're all fun to do, but they're never been as fun. Oh, piece of advice, unrelated to anything. If you're promoting a game and you're doing a demo derby, and you've got this great suit that you can wear, and you paint up the car really cool, you paint up the car really cool at a demo derby, guess which is the first car to get the crap beat out of it? And yeah, that was a little disappointing there, but it was a lot of fun. We have had a lot of fun. I have been blessed. I have been blessed. We did touchscreen games for bars, 3D, their royalty model was nice because how much money you made in royalties was how much it made in the game. Our 3 games made so much money the first year that they changed their royalty structure because it wasn't fair to everybody else. Ah, well, what are you going to do? Did slot games, did casino games, very lucrative, but by design, you cannot have skill in a slot machine game. So they weren't as much fun for me personally. And I can keep talking about the next 20 years, but I'm going to take a break and ask you guys what you want to hear about. We can talk about Deathstalker, which actually, that has an interesting ending. We can talk about the Rampage movie. And yeah, or we can just do questions and answers. Why don't we do that? Okay.
This is for the championship 2024 July Jamboree.
Two questions.
Are you ready?
Do you keep up much with like modern video games, or do you just?
I'm embarrassed to say that everybody asks me about what games are cool, what's going on. Employees will tell me what's cool and what's going on. My joy is making games, pushing against the box, trying to figure out what can be done that hasn't been done. These days, especially at my age, I only know about a new game when I'm watching my kid play it.
Ah, okay. I was just about to ask that if you're a fan of RTS, are you familiar with the Red Alert series or?
Not familiar, no.
All right.
All my days are spent making. Anybody else have any questions? Does anybody else want to hear about Rampage the movie? Oh wait, somebody has a question.
Which do you prefer, Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi?
Those are movies of some sort?
This guy's been putting up with me for like 2 months. And I
No, I haven't been putting up with him, but I do have a smile. Tom's great. Round of applause for Tom Kelly. He brought me here, and this is a wonderful show. Thank you all. Thank all of you that came by and said hi and told me, shared with me the fact that you remember this game fondly, that it meant something to you, and you have no idea how much that means to me. It means the world to me, and I really appreciate it.
keep asking questions though, because at 4 o'clock, we're going to announce the winner of the PlayStation 5. Okay? So, ask away. Go for it. Thank you.
I wasn't here for the whole thing, so you might have said it already. But when you were making Rampage, why did you only choose to make 3 playable characters as opposed to this typical 2 or 4?
I figured I might as well leave something. Star Trek Voyager is something we did. I do want to share this. What was your question, though? I'm sorry, say it again.
Why did you choose to make 3 characters in Rampage as opposed to 2?
Because it had never been done before. We were told no. Like I said, everything about that they didn't like. And Ralph, just parenthetically, people ask why Ralph was a wolf. It's because the hardware that we were pushing way beyond what they thought it could do did not have enough art space, and they wouldn't pay for bigger ROMs. So we used George's body, put it in a different color palette, and just put a new head on him. And so it had to be furry, and programmer Jeff Nauman said he wanted Ralph because he thought that was funny. The name Ralph for a wolf, so there you go. Star Trek Voyager was once a client came to us and said, I've got the rights, can you do a game? We did. Paramount was great. They let us create our own characters and everything. We're touring around the dark set while I was out there getting source material. And myself and the producer and one of my animators, and around the corner, what are you guys doing here? Cigar chomping, angry LeVar Burton. And I'm like, and the producer just turns around, and my animator, God love him, huge Trekkie, LeVar, I loved episode 27 where you directed and the blah, 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 blah. And angry cigar chomping LeVar Burton turned into Reading Rainbow right before our eyes. It was wonderful. I have been so lucky in this industry. There are so many stories like that. Okay, another question? Yes.
You mentioned the movie. What input did you have, and did you like the movie?
Okay, I'll answer the last one. Yes, I did like the movie. I liked it because like every human being, I knew every video game movie would suck. And then The Rock got attached, and I said, okay, this has hope. But early on, I sent him a note that said, hey, I can help. Yeah, thank you. Don't call us. We'll call you. And then someone from Chicago called me and said, you want to be an extra? Because they knew who I was. And I said, yeah, it doesn't get any better than this. So I'm running up and down the streets. And then while I'm there, the assistant director says, you designed the game. Let's shoot a cameo. So I spent an afternoon in a wool suit at 98 degrees running away from the Sears Tower. And then we're behind a moving camera truck. And it's like, but it doesn't get any better than this. And then I get a call from a producer who said, you want to come down to the studio and meet everybody during the last week of shooting? It's like, I can do that. Doesn't get any better than that. That's what I made those shirts for everybody, the film crew shirts, to give away as my sign of appreciation. Then I was invited to the premiere in Hollywood, took my wife, and I'm sitting, and I had friends calling me, I've seen the test screenings. Your face is 15 feet high. It's like, and the Sears Tower falls on your freaking head. Yes, honey, hang on, here it comes. So at the after party, producer comes up to me and says, sorry, Brian, Warner came in 3 weeks ago and you ended up on the cutting room floor. But the reason I loved the movie is because in the video game, you're the victim. You didn't ask to be turned into a monster. And I was really worried that the movie wasn't going to keep the humanity, but they kept the humanity in George. And he was sympathetic, you felt for him. So I love everything about the way they did the movie. And here's a question for you guys. Who knows why George got turned white fur in the movie?
Did you like that?
Because he was originally brown, like he was, and then you couldn't see the blood when he got attacked, when he had the fight with the grizzly. So to make him more sympathetic, they made him an albino. And that's all I got.
Well, yes, please help me thank Mr. Brian Cohen.
Thank you all for coming out. Thank you so much.
So you'll be here the rest of the weekend?
I am here the rest of the week.
Okay.
I believe you're doing something.
3 minutes, okay?
At 4 o'clock, they said they're going to, so we got 4 minutes.
Deathstalker, the one I started, the laser disc. Oh. In stereo. Deathstalker, the one that I filmed in 1984. I was talking to Doc Mack at the Galloping Ghost, and he's like, "That you still got the film?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, let's do a remake, restoration." I said, "Doc, the game was never made." He's like, "Brian, you still make games." It's like, "You're hiring to make this game?" So 25 years later, Deathstalker became an arcade game that Doc put into production and sold around the country. And once he put it in his arcade, it got played from dawn, opening till closing every day for about 2 years. It is Mystery Science Theater quality cinema. It is bad puns and horrible situations. The main vampire's name is Count Yorchukunski. And you had to go to these, you watch a few moments of film, and then you say, do you walk up to her and say, I like your breasts? Or do you ask for a kiss, or do you run like hell? Well, she's a vampire. If you don't do the right thing, you get knocked unconscious. And unlike games where you had to start over, the thing was a continuous film, so every time you got knocked unconscious, you'd wake somewhere else. It is a one-of-a-kind film, interactive film. Count Yorchukunski is the bad guy. It was at Der Hatchet Manor, where he was a mad scientist. And at the end, I apologize in advance. At the end, if you saw Baron Der Hatchet, another bad pun, Baron Der Hatchet, before you saw Count Yorchukunski, he would say, always Count Yorchukunski before Der Hatchet. Count your chickens for your hat for all those people that are saying, okay. I am a very bad punster. But yes, that was a game I'm really proud of because it never would have made a dime back in the day if they'd released it then. But the fact that free play arcades are a thing, it gets played constantly. And it's on Steam. All right, I'm done. Do we kill it?